This is the Grant Caldwell Report, and today the Epstein fallout just hit a new phase. Not a rumor cycle, not recycled outrage. A new international criminal move out of France, and a major closed-door deposition in the U.S. that could decide who gets pulled in next. And in a minute, I'm going to show you why these two developments are happening at the same time, and why that timing is the real story. Quickly, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next confirmed update. Tap like if you want facts over spin, and drop a comment right now with one word: accountability or cover-up. I want your answer on the record before we get into the names, the redactions, and the resignations. Now, I'm coming at this from a Republican angle, not because this is a team sport, but because conservatives have been saying for years that we're living in a two-tier justice system. Regular people get the full force of the law, and the connected get delays, secrecy, and excuses. The Epstein Files are a real-world stress test of whether the system can treat powerful people the way it treats everyone else. And here's the point that matters. The DOJ itself says these releases were done under the Epstein Files Transparency Act that was signed into law in November 2025. So let's start with what's breaking and verified. French prosecutors in Paris have opened 2 new investigations tied to Jeffrey Epstein. One focused on sex abuse-related crimes, and another focused on financial wrongdoing. And the key detail is that the Paris prosecutor, Les Wexner, publicly urged potential victims to come forward, saying some victims may not yet be known. That is not something prosecutors do when they think the book is already closed. Now here's the watch this moment. France isn't just talking about crimes. They're talking about money movement too. Money laundering, corruption, and tax fraud. And if you understand how these networks survive, you understand why that's a big deal. Because money trails don't care about celebrity. They don't care about political party. They connect the dots whether people like it or not. And France's probe includes a preliminary inquiry tied to former French culture minister Jack Lang and his daughter, involving suspected tax fraud and potential links through an offshore company. Again, allegations are not convictions, but the significance is the scope. France is signaling they're willing to revisit what was previously shelved. Now hold that thought. Because at the same time this international track is firing up, Congress is tightening the screws in the U.S. Today's U.S. pressure point is the closed-door deposition of Les Wexner, the retired founder of L Brands, in a congressional probe centered on his past relationship with Epstein. This isn't internet gossip. This is Congress putting someone under oath behind closed doors and pressing for timelines, documents, and follow-ups. AP reports the newly released Justice Department documents reference Wexner more than 1,000 times, and that the relationship included Wexner granting Epstein significant control in the 1990s, including power of attorney, before their relationship ended bitterly. Wexner denies wrongdoing and denies knowledge of Epstein's crimes. But this is exactly why depositions matter. They force specifics. They lock in a timeline. And the next move isn't a headline. It's subpoenas for records. And here's the part people underestimate. A deposition isn't just what did he say. It's what do investigators request next. Emails, calendars, assistants, gatekeepers, travel, money. That's how you move from outrage to evidence. Now we have to talk about the DOJ release itself, because this is where Republicans have a clean, simple lane. Release the truth, protect victims, stop shielding powerful adults. The DOJ says it published over 3 million additional pages, plus more than 2,000 videos and 180,000 images, bringing the total to nearly 3.5 million pages, in compliance with the law. DOJ also lists categories of material it says were withheld, like duplicates, privilege, and exceptions under the Act, and notes additional protocols meant to prevent victim-identifying info from being released unredacted. But here's why the public doesn't trust this: the redactions and the process. Reuters reports a House hearing where Representative Thomas Massie, a Republican from Kentucky, accused Attorney General Pam Bondi of concealing names of powerful Epstein associates, pointing specifically to a document where Leslie Wexner's name was redacted in an FBI document listing potential co-conspirators, and questioning why that happened at all. DOJ cited legal privileges. Lawmakers said the redactions look like protection. That moment matters for conservatives because it's the exact thing voters are furious about. If the government can decide whose name gets blacked out, then the public is being managed, not informed. And if the answer is, we're protecting victims, fine. But then the government needs to show it's protecting victims, not protecting reputations. And speaking of protecting victims, PBS reported the government said it was fixing thousands of documents that may have contained victim information on the Epstein Files website. That's important for two reasons at once. 1. Survivors should never be put at risk. 2. Sloppiness feeds suspicion that the release process is being handled in a way that invites chaos instead of clarity. Now midstream, subscribe if you want the updates delivered clean. What's confirmed, what's alleged, and what actually changes the case. And I want a second comment from you. Should Congress force a full unredacted review in a secured setting? Yes or no? That question is the pressure valve. Because here's what's happening next. The fallout is already moving money and power, not just headlines. Reuters has documented how the Epstein document releases are triggering resignations and leadership shakeups in elite institutions. One of the biggest examples is Paul Weiss chairman Brad Karp resigning after the release of emails showing extensive communications with Epstein. Reuters reports he wasn't accused of misconduct, but he stepped down to avoid becoming a distraction for the firm. And Reuters reporting also covers the resignation of Goldman Sachs' top lawyer Kathy Remler after Epstein-related disclosures raised major questions of judgment and scrutiny in the public eye. Again, not proof of a crime, but proof that institutions believe the reputational damage is real. Now let's talk about the international side that conservatives should care about, because it touches influence, access, and the ability of a predator to move through high-level circles without being stopped. Reuters reports the newly released documents show Epstein tried to build a network of powerful ties across the Middle East, including outreach and correspondence involving major political and business figures. And Reuters says the biggest repercussion there was the resignation of Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem, the CEO and chair of DP World, after his name appeared in the files and questions escalated from financial backers. Here's the important line conservatives should stick to, because it's honest and strong. Being named in a file is not evidence of a crime, but it is evidence that Epstein was operating in proximity to people with serious power, and that raises accountability questions about who enabled access, who ignored warning signs, and who looked the other way. Reuters itself explicitly notes that being named is not proof of criminal activity. And now here's the why it's still exploding piece. The public reaction. Reuters Ipsos found that roughly 69% of respondents said the idea that powerful people rarely face consequences reflects their view very well or extremely well, with broad agreement across Democrats and Republicans at least somewhat. That is the oxygen for this story, because even people who disagree on everything else agree on this. The system protects itself. And if you're a Republican viewer, here's the strategic takeaway. The winning message isn't use this against the other side. The winning message is no sacred cows. If you believe in law and order, you don't selectively apply it. You protect victims, and you drag the full truth into daylight, even if it embarrasses people you voted for, people you like, or institutions you trust. Now one more development that adds fuel globally. A panel of independent UN experts said allegations reflected in the newly released Epstein documents may reveal a global criminal enterprise and could rise to the level of crimes against humanity, calling for an impartial, thorough investigation. Whether you trust the UN or not, the fact that they're saying it out loud tells you how international this has become. So here's where we land. And here are the next 3 things to watch, because this is how you separate real movement from recycled noise. First, watch what comes out after the Wexner deposition. Not the public spin, but the follow-up requests, subpoenas, records demands, and any new witness lists. That's where accountability becomes measurable. Second, watch France. When prosecutors open a sex abuse track and a financial crimes track, that means they're looking at both conduct and infrastructure. And once jurisdictions start pulling records, the same names can surface in places people didn't expect. Third, watch the redactions fight. Reuters has already documented lawmakers accusing DOJ of hiding names and DOJ insisting it's using legal privileges. The public will not accept trust us anymore, not from anyone. Before you go, subscribe if you want me tracking this like a ledger. What's verified, what changes, what doesn't, and what the institutions don't want you focusing on. And I want your final comment in one sentence. What should Congress do next? Subpoena more witnesses, demand a secured unredacted review, or appoint an outside investigator? This is the Grant Caldwell Report. If the next major move drops, you'll see it here. Facts first.